Well, hey everybody, this is Drew from Clean Sheep Shots. Today's video is a little different than what you would normally see on this channel. I've often said it's not about the cardboard, it's about the men on the cardboard. They have stories. With that in mind, there are many wonderful channels that dive into history and tell fantastic stories. And I was lucky enough to get a few to join me today during this busy holiday season. So with me today, and I'm going to go ahead and bring them in here. We've got Mike, the sports history
Drew,
collector. Hi, Mike. Mike, I love your Athletes at War series. They're fantastic.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And we've got Rob. How you doing, Rob? The baseball time traveler. As the name would indicate, Rob takes us back to major events such as the World Series game and relives it while looking at some great cards from his collection.
Good to be here, gentlemen.
Hugo, how you doing, Hugo?
Doing great. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. And so, Hugo, signs of the pastime. You never know where Hugo's going to take us next on location. So, always looking forward to your videos. He often spotlights places that hold many historical gems.
Yep.
And we're still wondering if that's a green screen or if you're actually outside or not.
Indoors for once. This is a rarity.
Hi, Gordon.
Hey, Drew. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Hey,
Athlete Archives. Gordon does a fantastic job of bringing to life players who have been long forgotten, and just love your presentation skills, Gordon.
Thanks.
So with that, let's roll. I kind of want to get to know you guys a little bit better. And so my first question for you guys is I'd love to hear how you decided that you would make videos that were story-based. And let's go right around the clock. Mike, you want to start?
I don't know, just happened.
Great. Rob?
Well, as the name kind of indicates, the sports history collector, I've always loved sports history. I like any kind of history, actually. But it just intrigued me, maybe because when I was growing up, you hear all these kind of homogenized stories about these players, but then you get a little older and you find out a little more about them, and they're even more interesting at that point. So I really wanted my channel to have some to kind of tell some of these stories. Also, the fact that I was probably on YouTube 2 years before I started doing content and watching a lot of different channels, and I find the ones that tell stories are the most interesting to me. And it doesn't even have to be, in depth, go into the history of this or history of that. Just tell something about why you collected it or what it is, the player that you collected, or just say something about it other than this is a 5, this is a 3, I mean, I'll watch those sometimes, but they're not as interesting after a while. You get kind of tired of that. So that's basically, I just wanted to kind of do something that I would like to watch. And unfortunately, I've had at least a core group of people that or are enjoying it. So that's good enough for me.
Mike, what is the era that you try to focus on? Is there an era that, or it doesn't matter to you?
It doesn't really matter. I found some. It's funny, like when I knew I was going to make a channel or have a channel, I started writing down different things I wanted to cover, and I ended up with about 100 to 150 things. And I'm always adding. And it could be something like it could be something from World War II, as my Athletes at War series. It could be some famous. I really like famous plays and famous events. So it could be something like a Merkel boner or Snodgrass off of lose the series. But it could be something as new as like I did one on Tommy John committing 3 errors in 1 inning. Just also, I mean, stuff like that. So I mean, it varies. I really like um, not necessarily pre-war, but I do like pre-war. But any of the wartime stuff is always kind of interesting to me. So I would say I kind of concentrate a little bit more on that right now, but it's all up for perhaps.
And how long you been on YouTube, Mike?
Making
Making
2 years, January 1st, coming up here for my 2nd anniversary.
Okay. Well, Rob, tell us a little bit about how you dove into storytelling.
Well, I dove into storytelling really because I had no choice. I just back up to February of 2023, so almost 2 years ago. I'm retired, and I said to my wife, I said, I've got these cards in the garage that I've had for literally 40 years. And I said, I've got to find some kind of hobby to do. So what I tried to do was organize all these, cards from the early 1980s, because I had a brief period. That was my second phase of collecting. My first phase was back in the 60s as a kid. But in the early 80s, I essentially started collecting cards because my fellow classmates, I was going to law school at the time, and we decided to start a fantasy baseball league. This was 1981, the strike year. Long story short, back then we didn't really have access like we do today to players, player information, even photographs of players. And I was drafted guys I had never even seen because we would only be limited to the game of the week. So typically in California, we would just see West Coast teams play. Occasionally, we'd see some of the East Coast teams play, but for the most part, never really knew what a lot of these guys look like. So I collected in the early 80s, then fast forward to 2023, and I said, well, what am I going to do with all these cards? They don't really have any sentimental value to me because I collected as a young adult, but I did want to go back to my childhood, the early to mid 60s, when Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, Hank Aaron, Sandy Koufax, all those guys, I lived through that era. So to cut to the chase, as far as the storytelling, I don't have the card collecting background that so many of the guys in this community have, where they can identify different types of cards and the years and this and that. All I wanted to do was really focus on telling stories of what I lived through. And it really helped me narrow my collecting, because what I did was I said, well, I remember listening inning by inning on the radio to Sandy Koufax's Perfect Game in September of 1965. A couple of days earlier, I think it was actually the night before, Bert Campaneris. He was playing against the Angels. He was with the A's, and he played all 9 positions. Go back further in just a month earlier, I watched the Juan Marichal, John Roseboro incident with my grandfather. So again, these are just 3 of the videos that I've made since I started my channel, because it's so easy for me to tell the stories. And then because like Mike, I'm so interested in history. I was a history major in college, and I just love putting things into context, kind of reliving some of the things that I lived through, or going further back, just understanding what, World War I, World War II was like, and what the players had to endure, that sort of thing. So for me, storytelling became easy because all I had to do was kind of recall what I had lived through. And that's really where my focus, my collection, and where my focus of the videos will remain.
And you've been on YouTube for about 1 year, right?
Just over 1 year. Yeah. December 10th, I think, was my inaugural sale. So it's been a ride for sure.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Hugo, how you doing?
Good. All right. Well, for me, before I got on YouTube, I watched a lot of videos, and most of them, not that it's a bad thing, but most of them just covered the legendary players that we all know, right? And it was very stats based, focused, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just thought, there's so many great men out there, great ball players that had great stories, that I thought, it would be good to spotlight those guys and get people to appreciate those guys just as much. It would be, for example, like a guy like Al Lopez, Hall of Famer. I would never hear his name mentioned really ever, So I thought, well, this guy, he's got a great story. He's in these parts, he's a legendary player. And if I could tell a story about that guy and connect with the collector on a level to where they would be, be like, man, I got that card in my collection, man, maybe, see it with different eyes. I thought if I could do that, then it's an effective video, and I've done what I set out to do on YouTube, and that was the primary goal, just to get people to appreciate other guys as much, as well. And even with the Hall of Famers, like the Babe Ruths and Lou Gehrig, I'm fortunate that I'm in Florida. So a lot of these ball players played in Florida at one time in spring training, So I thought, man, I got a great opportunity here to, tell stories that probably people haven't heard. I'll show locations that have ties to baseball that, it would be like an interesting story, and it could, go deeper into that players' personal lives or just what they were into, and I always thought that was neat. I like hearing more about what these guys were about. Like when you cover the players that had to put their whole life on hold, their careers on hold, and go fight for our country. That's a real life story. That's a real sacrifice. You appreciate these men for what they had to sacrifice and endure, and I like stories like that, and I see those men differently, and it, like you said, it could be a common card in the hobby, but it would make me want to collect them just because of how interesting these men were, how much character they had, and so I thought, well, if I could do it with from some kind of angle that would make the collector appreciate their cards, that's what I wanted to do. So so far so good. I feel like I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm sticking to it.
Well, Hugo, you didn't mention it, but predominantly your videos are on location or outside.
Yep.
And I think that's just a great flavor to add to the video too.
Yeah.
Especially somebody like myself. I'm a visual learner, and I love seeing. I think you can relate better when you see the stadium or the the background or
right.
Things of that nature. So
yeah, I like that. Real quick, like baseball is such a sights and sound. Like I grew up listening to a lot of ball games on the radio. You could hear the crowd, and so when I'm out on location and you hear just whatever, nature or cars, traffic, whatever it may be, chatter from people, I don't know, it's kind of like baseball. It's just the atmosphere you're in, and it just adds that element that I enjoy to the videos.
And how long you been on YouTube making videos?
Almost 2 years. End of February I got on, like February 26th or something of 2 years ago. So
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Gordon, thank you for joining us. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. Just listening to you guys speak, I think we have so much in common, and a lot of the things that I'm drawn to, I think we all share. I have a love for history. I didn't major in it like Rob, but I do find that as I get older too, I'm more interested in history than when I was younger. I think that's just kind of a natural progression in life. But for me, I have a number of things I'm interested in, but history, baseball, and art all interest me, and they kind of all meet, intersect in the world of baseball cards. And when I was younger, I think like a lot of people, I had two stages of collecting from 1979 up until pretty much when I graduated from high school and everything stopped, and then coming back to it as an adult. And YouTube was a big part of that. Finding content online, whether it was on Spotify podcasts, excuse me, and the things that I initially started watching on YouTube, I don't watch anymore. It was all the ultra modern pack ripping stuff, and I'm so grateful that I didn't get sucked into that hole, because it's just like it is such a gambler's game, the way that ultra modern hobby works. I mean, everybody's got their own thing, but fortunately, I think with a little bit of hindsight or experience from what I went through in the late 70s, early 80s with the junk wax era, I had built this collection that was a mile wide, but like an inch deep. And it was just full of basically anything I could ever get my hands on, I was buying. And I decided as an adult, at one point I liquidated that collection. I got into cars and sold it to fund a race engine. But when I got back into the hobby, I decided I wanted to keep it small and tight. So I have kind of a limit in my head of 100 cards. If it gets beyond that, then I need to start consolidating. So I've got a case that has just under 100 cards right now, but I'm pretty narrowly focused on what I collect. But that's kind of an aside to the YouTube stuff. I felt like there was so much content out there of people buying cards, and with my philosophy of a 100 card limit, I wasn't going to be able to keep buying cards and sharing them. And I didn't necessarily get into YouTube for the baseball card part of it. It was more the history part. And I think all of you guys kind of share a similar view. For me, you could find 100 videos on Hank Aaron, who I love, by the way, but I wasn't going to do a Hank Aaron video. So I started to, or my initial focus was, and still is today, to only talk about non-Hall of Famers. So that's my criteria. So it started with a guy who had an impact on my life, Mark Fidrich. He was the first video. Unfortunately for him, he was my first video. Could have been a little smoother, but I wanted to share his story, and I knew bits and pieces of it, but I didn't really have. There was no impetus for me to do any kind of real research, and I felt like, maybe starting a YouTube channel will kind of force me to dive a little bit deeper and do some fact checking, and so it's been good as far as that goes. And I've been fortunate enough to have met a couple people who've suggested other players, guys that I never even heard of. My friend Sean, for example, approached me about doing a video on George Selkirk, who I'd never heard of, didn't know anything about the guy. He took Babe Ruth's spot on the Yankees, and so it just kind of steamrolled from there. And there's just a limitless number of guys that I want to eventually cover. I just, kind of taking my time and doing it. So to answer your question, March 30th, 2023 was my first video. So almost 2 years.
Okay.
And I think I'm about 40 videos in. So I'm pretty sporadic. I think I kind of work in seasons, but we'll see what we do in 2025.
Well, Gordon, when you do videos, you often talk about, I mean, I don't want to call them obscure, but I guess they are. I mean, players, I'm having to Google them going, who is this guy? And I find myself digging even deeper after watching one of your videos. So I actually appreciate that.
Well, there are certainly some well-known, like Thurman Munson, but
Yeah, but Drew, at least you Google them. I think there's people that are on YouTube that they'll look at their feed and they'll see some player that, a video that comes up and I've never heard of them, so they just skip it. Because I noticed some of the ones, I've seen some really good videos of obscure players, and they have like 20 views.
Yeah,
20,
Mike. I mean,
30
Mike and I did a video on Lou Brissy, and he has just got a phenomenal story.
Yeah,
It's just unbelievable what that guy went through, and like almost nobody watched it. But whatever. I mean, in the end, I've talked to Drew about this. I'm not doing it for the views. I'm happy with the work that I've done, and we'll leave it at that.
But you kind of hope that somebody watches it a little bit. They don't even have to like it. See it.
Thank goodness Gordon had 20 or 25 family members. Huh?
Yeah.
I'm just joking.
Lou Brissy did have a great story, because he was actually kind of a side story to a story I did on Eddie Kazak, who had a similar situation, overcoming a very serious injury sustained during the war. So there's a gold mine of those World War II guys. Absolutely,
it's unbelievable.
Well, the reason I had you guys, or I asked you guys to join me, is for all the reasons that we all have this in common: the history part, the obscure, the non-Hall of Famers, all of that. And for those reasons, that's why I wanted to do the storytelling too. And on my channel, I rarely, if ever, say the word common, because I think all of these guys they got fantastic stories. They're not common, to me, and so. I'm always kind of take a step back when I hear that word, but at any rate, same for me. The same reasons that I started telling stories about history are the ones that you guys have already mentioned. And I wish I did more. I seem to fall back into my doing videos of nonsense. So keep up the great work, guys. I'll keep watching yours. My next question I had for you guys was, what is the second favorite video that you guys did, or the story that you did? And Mike, I'll start with you again.
I had to think about that a little bit. Not that they're all great. It's more like I'd say my favorite. I just pulled the card that I showed in that one. I don't know if
Yeah.
you see that one very well. It's Jack Lucky Lorky, and I I had never heard of him before. Another one of these obscure players, and I happened to watch a video, and somebody had mentioned his name and just briefly said something, and I thought, "Whoa, that sounds interesting." So I went and researched the guy, and it was amazing the amount of times he had near-death experiences, or people around him were shot during World War II, uh, um, during Normandy, and on his travel to get there, and his travel to go home, and even on the bus when he got home to playing ball in the minors, he avoided death so many times and lived a nice long life. But it was just amazing story, and I really enjoyed doing that one. And it was actually my first Athletes at War. That kind of got me started, and then that kind of snowballed from there.
Mike, where can they find, what episode number is that if somebody wanted
Number
to?
one.
Oh, it is
In
number
fact,
one. Okay.
in fact, I'm not even sure if I numbered that one. It was like just Athletes at War, but it's the first one. It's probably about maybe my 10th video, maybe approximately.
Okay. Rob?
My second favorite video, it was a toss-up between the Sandy Koufax Perfect Game and the Roseboro Marshall thing. And the reason why I'm going to take the Roseboro Marshall, because the Sandy Koufax, my daughter helped me with that particular video. That was my very first documentary video. And the Marshall Roseboro, I spent that afternoon back in 1965, August 22nd, with my grandfather. And he was a San Francisco Giants fan. I was a San Francisco Giants fan. My dad, for some reason, after growing up in the Bronx, he was a Brooklyn Dodgers fan. I never figured that out. And I don't think he ever really clearly explained why. He might have had a favorite player back in Brooklyn. But long story short, I'm going to go with the second video, the Roseboro Marshall, which for some reason, I don't understand why, but it's gotten a tremendous amount of views. And I think it's because I titled it Brawl at the Bay. And I don't know if that's looking for trouble. I don't know. But that one, for some reason, just exploded and continues to be watched. And that was well over a year ago now. So that would be my second favorite video.
Okay. Hugo, what do you got?
All right. So my second favorite is actually my first video, and it's my wife's favorite. So we talked about this previous, like what's her favorite, and she likes that first one because it got me off the bench, I guess you could say, and making videos. But it was on Buck O'Neill, so I showed this card in that video, and it's real close to being my favorite because again, just the memories tied to it. It was on location. There was artwork in there. I showed a mural, a huge mural of Buck O'Neill in Sarasota, where he grew up, and it was, I mean, I got to sing in it, which I say if I can sing in a video, then that's a good video, So it had that in it. Got to go over the history, from early childhood where he grew up, and showed his, the neighborhood where he grew up, the school, where he worked, his first job, like where he watched Babe Ruth hit baseballs, and at Payne Park there, and it had everything, and it just falls short of another video, and I'll tell you that later on. But this was just Buck O'Neill was a guy that he had just made the Hall of Fame. I always thought of him as a great storyteller, a very personable guy, great attitude, great outlook on life, and that's a good example. That's what I strive to be as well. And I thought this is the perfect guy to, just to go ahead and I titled it "The Buck Starts Here," and that's where I wanted to start with a guy like this. This guy was everything that I want to talk about. Baseball life for a guy who appreciated the game, sacrificed a lot, loved people, loved to talk to people. Always had a great attitude, and I just thought, this is it. This is the guy. So I'm like talking myself into making this my favorite video, but let me stop and just leave it at that. But yeah, the first one was my second favorite.
Awesome. Gordon, your
Yeah,
second favorite video, second favorite story, I guess.
it's a tough question because I think probably like you guys, a lot of these videos, I spent a lot of time on the background, and they're like children. I mean, there's a lot of effort that goes into some of these, and some of them turn out better than others. I mean, it's just the way it goes sometimes. But I think my second favorite video, not necessarily do I think it's the second best video that I made, but maybe my second favorite researching and everything is I did a video on Ray Chapman. And I remember, honestly, I'll give you, this is the God's honest truth. You can think about me whatever you want, but I didn't really know Ray Chapman's story until my son was like 5, and he had a little kid's book, baseball book about Ray Chapman being killed. This seems like a weird topic for a kid's book now that I think about it, but it was a story that was much more complex than I thought going into it. It wasn't just about a dude who wasn't wearing a helmet who got hit in the head. There was so much more into it. Some rules changes that happened in 1919. Umpires were being almost strong-armed by the owners to keep balls in games as long as possible. The spitball was still legal. So there was just a lot that went into it. It was an overcast day. The skies were dark. Chapman was a good bunter. It was well known that the best way to pitch him was to pitch him high and tight. And then Carl Mays, who was a submarine pitcher, who threw the pitch that killed him, was kind of had a reputation as a headhunter. So it was a really interesting story to me, and I learned a lot. And I usually try and pick up a card when I do a story on these guys. Now, if you guys are aware, I mean, Ray Chapman has just a couple of cards, and they are crazy expensive. So I did not buy a real card. I bought a cigar box, tobacco. It's a Cracker Jack knockoff that I had him make, and really happy to have that. I wish I could convince myself to spend the $2,500 on a legitimate Ray Chapman card, but I don't think so. But that's probably number 2.
Well, I think for me, my second favorite story was one that I had to do a lot of research on, and it was a story about Sam Jones and his relationship with 11-year-old boy named Johnny Bushman. I first kind of told the story in the 1953 series that I'm doing, and then I retold it and expanded it when Eddie's Cardboard Chaos asked for a VR. Just connecting Sam Jones with Johnny Bushman and understanding that relationship and the power of kindness and the influence that it had on an 11-year-old boy who was stricken with polio, and with Johnny Bushman really going on to, well, he went on to law school and becoming general counsel for the U.S. Senate on Indian Affairs, and had that relationship not happened, yeah, Johnny Bushman may have taken a different path. So I think for me, that was probably my second favorite. But you guys ready for a little trivia?
Ready?
Sure.
Ready?
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Well, this is all vintage. So
Wait, no, I thought we agreed it was all going to be based on the 1984 Tigers.
Oh,
Or 84 Padres, either one.
No, I'm afraid not, guys. All right, so I'm going to keep score here. I've got 6 questions, I believe. All right, first question's actually got 3 points in it. All right.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's worth 3 points. So if you get one person right, you get 1, 2, and 3. So who were the 3 people on the first cover of Sports Illustrated, August 16th, 1954? Now I'm not talking about the crowd. There were 3 people. So write down your answers.
Gosh. What was the date?
1954, August 16th, 1954.
Were they all 3 baseball players?
I'm not going to answer that.
Oh man.
I know one.
Any hints? Like, can you say what teams were playing? He wants to do it.
I've got two.
I will give you one because it's the easiest and the obvious.
No, that's probably the one I got.
That's what I got too.
Everybody the Braves.
Oh,
All right.
really? Oh,
Ah,
well, that changes.
I'm drawing a blank on the pitcher. Golly.
All right.
Yeah, I
The
don't know who
pitcher's
they were.
not in it.
What?
The pitcher's
Pitcher's
not.
not in it. That's right.
Oh, geez, you keep okay.
There's no pitcher in it.
nope. I got
What was the year?
1954.
54.
County Stadium.
I got batter, catcher, and umpire, I'm guessing.
Oh, Hugo's really wanting to help you guys out.
Yeah, the
Is that
umpire.
right? It's a view of home plate.
It's
Yeah.
a view home plate.
Oh,
It's a bat. I'll give you guys the hint. I don't mind, but
Yeah, Hugo's right. It's a batter, a catcher, and an umpire.
I know both, but I don't know the umpire.
don't know the catcher or umpire, but educated guess.
is it Eddie Matthews?
Wait a minute. Don't be right.
Well,
Gordon,
we'll wind down.
Gordon,
so-
this is a contest.
Oh,
I think everybody ready to show, or
Well, yeah, I don't know. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, do we show it or do we just say it?
Mike, you show yours first. What do you got?
I don't know. I don't know if this is forwards or backwards on this. It's backwards. It's Eddie Matthews.
okay.
That's the only one I got.
So Mike gets 1 point, right? Okay. And Rob gets 2 points.
Oh wow. Good job.
Hugo?
I got
Western.
Eddie Matthews, Campanella, and Al Barlick as the umpire. I don't know if that's
oh,
You got 1 point.
one. All right.
I mean,
okay.
obviously Eddie Matthews.
Yeah. Oops, I had Eddie Matthews.
All right. So Rob up there had Westrum, right?
Yep.
And the umpire was Augie Donatelli.
Oh my gosh, I
Donatelli
did a
was,
video on him.
yes. He was a prisoner of war, right, Gordon?
That was a setup.
Come on. I'm going to give you a layup here, Gordon. So, yeah, I mean, you want to talk about Augie for a second? He was a prisoner.
Yeah, Augie Donatelli was I think he was a B-17 tail gunner, if I remember right.
I think so.
And he was captured by the Germans and held in, I think, Stalag 11B, which was in Germany.
Wow.
There was so I won't go too far off track here, Drew. But that was one of my favorite videos to research. I learned so much. I had no idea that baseball was played in POW camps. If you've seen The Great Escape, I think we're all kind of at the age. Hugo's a little young, but the old guys, I think we've seen The Great Escape, and it's that
Great
story.
movie.
When I saw that movie, I didn't know that was a true story
Yeah.
when I saw that movie the first time.
Yep.
So crazy story. But Augie Donatelli was one of the guys who played baseball there in German camps, and one of the guys who made it to major leagues.
I
as an
think
umpire.
I think the Russians actually freed him, if I remember reading that correctly. And while he was in prisoner of war in camp, that's how he got his start with umpiring, and he was umpiring softball. So,
Wow.
all right, second question, fellas.
I was just gonna say, imagine see, that's a good example for like if you hate your job or something. Like, I mean, think about that guy's outlook on life. He had a smile going to work every day, just to know what he experienced and to be at a ball game every day. That's amazing, But
Yeah, I think a lot of those guys had they had different outlooks.
different outlook. For sure.
Yeah.
Very much. Yeah, how many of these guys? I mean, World War II breaks out, and they all went like this. Where do I sign up?
Mm-hmm.
Where do I go?
Yeah.
So I admire that.
Yeah.
Question number 2: first ever African American to pitch a no hitter, May 12th, 1955.
Oh,
Oof. I should know this one, but oh boy.
No Googling.
Mike, you look like you vapor locked over there. You all right?
yeah. I'm thinking here. Hold on.
Cool.
Man.
Stay off the Google now.
No, hold on. I'll be right back.
Really, you gotta have the Jeopardy music going.
Hugo, go ahead and whistle it.
Here we go. Oh, wait, I'm a terrible whistler, but
Okay, I'm ready.
Is everybody ready?
I'm ready.
give me the embarrassment.
Hugo, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Gordon? All right, Mike, what do you got?
I was a total guess. I put Don Newcomb.
Ooh, good
No.
guess.
Yeah, good guess. Oh,
That's
Don
what came to mind first. But did you have one, Rob? Sam Jones?
Uh,
Yeah, I just showed the card.
Ah,
All right.
this is
okay, so I got to go back and watch the very beginning of this video to see any kind of Easter eggs.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. The third player to break the color barrier. He was the first for the St. Louis Browns. He was also the first for the San Francisco Giants, Rob. First to do it in both leagues, and he fought in the Battle of the Bulge during World War II.
Got this one.
Got this one.
Okay,
That's a lot of hints right there.
Yeah.
okay. St. Louis Browns. He went to the San Francisco Giants.
That's
New
right.
York. New York Giants.
Oh, I'm sorry, New York Giants.
Okay, okay.
I apologize. Yeah.
am I going to embarrass myself?
And what was the rest of that?
Okay, I'll read it again. The third player to break the color barrier. He was the first for the Browns and the Giants. He was the first to do it in both leagues. And in World War II, he fought in the Battle of the Bulge as a machine gunner.
Okay.
Good? Everybody?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think it's right, but
All right, Mike, what do you have?
I'm
I
pretty
got Monty Irvin.
No.
Good
But
guess.
Monty Irvin was with this. There it is.
Yeah.
Rob's got it.
Hank
Hank
Thompson.
Thompson.
Yep. Hank Thompson.
All right,
Well,
Hugo.
Gordon and I are on the same page.
On the same day, though, just to clarify, for the Giants, Monty Irvin and Hank Thompson on the same day for the Giants.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
and there he
I think
is.
it was first all black outfield too with Mays, Irvin, and Thompson.
Good
Yeah.
job. That's right. All right, here we go. Let's see. Next up, this catcher was a POW in Germany during World War II, eventually escaping,
I know.
like the Giants, the Senators, and the Indians, and then the Giants again. And I can't remember, but I know one of you did a video on this guy.
What are the teams he played for again, Drew?
Yeah, the Giants, Senators, Indians, and then the Giants again. He was a catcher.
Yeah.
You want another hint?
Yeah.
No. No.
Gordon says no. Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, Mike.
I'm drawing a
Ready?
blank.
Yeah. What do you got, Mike?
Are they done?
Are you guys, everybody done?
I'm done.
Yeah.
Give me 5 more seconds.
Do, 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 do.
No, I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm wrong.
I think I'm wrong too. I put Mickey Grasso.
That's correct.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Rob, who'd
Yeah,
you have?
wrong guy. Sorry.
Ah,
Same
Wait,
team,
Bob.
but wrong guy.
I put Del Crandall. I'm way off. I don't know.
Yeah.
and I'm not. It's got a little bit of a yeah. You got it. All right. Gordon got it.
Awesome. All right.
All right.
Beautiful card, by the way. I love these Bowmans. They're
I
just,
do too.
they're awesome, man. Works of art.
Yeah.
This is 53.
Yeah, I've got
Sweet.
So he was held at Stalag. Oh, I think I can't remember if it was 7B. It's the one if you see Masters of the Air on Apple.
I can't remember off the top of my head either. It was like I was thinking 13B or something like that.
Yeah, maybe
It was-
that's right.
Which,
It was a
which-
big camp.
He did escape, like Drew said. They found a boat. I don't remember the name of the river. I'm terrible at geography. And rowed across.
which one of you did a video on him? Was it you, Gordon?
I did, yeah.
And I did one too.
Yeah, I was okay. All right.
Do you have an autographed copy, Mike? Of
I
Aggressive?
do. It was very. I wouldn't say it's hard to find. It was hard to find at a reasonable price.
Well, we got 2 questions left, and here's the score. All right, Mike, you got 2. Rob's got 4. Hugo 3, and Gordon 2. There's still time.
Way too tight.
Still waiting for the '84 Tigers.
All right.
Kirk Gibson.
All right. At 6'4", 240 pounds, he was known for his towering home runs from the left side. He was a first baseman. He was the first player to hit a home run in New York's Polo Grounds in the center field bleachers, 490 feet. He also hit the longest at Municipal Stadium in Cleveland at 477 feet. And he was shot and killed outside of a bank in Ohio.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
He wasn't that
So the
bad.
deal was he was held up. He had, I think, was $5,000 on him. He was working and he was a courier. And two armed gentlemen with masks said, "Give me your money." He said no. They said, "Give me your money." He said no, and they shot him.
What year year range was he playing, or
50s. Yeah. If you haven't figured it out, there's a 50s theme here.
yeah.
He's got some great cards in the 50s. Bowman, I mean,
Yeah.
53.
You know who it is?
Beautiful
You know who it is?
card. Yeah.
Is everybody done? Or Mike's still working on it? Mike, you need another.
I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna call it. I'll draw a blank on that one.
You gonna put a name down?
It wouldn't matter. I don't think it would be right. So
Okay.
I'll take a 0.
All right. Gordon got it right. Hugo got it right.
Yeah, I got it wrong.
And Rob didn't get it. All right.
Easter. Okay.
Luke Easter, yeah.
I didn't know he was that big. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I didn't know I remember the story about him being
shot.
killed. That's
Yeah.
The size is what was throwing me off.
Yeah.
Everybody I was thinking of was like just like not that big.
Yeah.
Man, massive guy. You can see it in that 53 Bowman color. Just like huge arms, man. That incredible.
Well, we got Rob and Hugo in the lead with 4, Gordon with 3, Mike with 2. We got one last question. Here we go, Phil. All right. 1947, he won the World Series with the Yankees. 1940, he was the World Series winner in Game 1 with the Tigers. There you go, Gordon. Now here's the kicker. So after that Game 1 win, his father goes back to the hotel, and after being in attendance, he passes away. And this guy comes out and says, "I'm going to win one for my daddy in the next game." He goes to the funeral, takes the train back, and he goes out and he does win that game. He pitched for 20 seasons, and he played for 9 of the 16 teams that were in existence at that time.
oh my gosh.
In that 20 seasons.
All right. Got it, I think.
Hugo smiling over there.
Yeah.
Oh, this
I got
sounds
it.
real familiar too.
I got his first name for sure. Last name, I may be a little off, but I think I got it.
So, well, do we have to have the full name, guys, or is first
Well,
name gonna work?
Jeopardy, you could just have the last name.
Yeah.
Well,
In this case, first name.
I'll say this: you're probably going to know the first name before you will the last.
Yeah.
You're a mean man, Drew.
Yeah. He's
Good work for today, fellas.
Oh, I'm drawing a blank. What's throwing me is 1940. Weren't that was the Reds and the Tigers, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that. He's begging for a half a point there.
That's good.
All right, you ready?
Oh, no.
Let's
Yeah,
do it.
I'm gonna get. It's not right, and I have an idea who it might be, but
Wait, Hugo got it.
I put Hal Newhouser, Bobo Newsom. Okay,
That's
Hugo
what I
got
would do.
it. No. Mike, Gordon.
I had Hal Newhouser.
I got Scooble.
I think Hugo's going to win this thing.
Hugo won it, actually. Yeah, there was your Tiger question, Gordon.
No, wrong era, man.
Oh. Well, thanks for participating in that. We better keep moving. We're at 45 minutes.
I was afraid we were going to get some corn questions.
Man, that was great. Let's keep doing trivia, man.
Yeah, well done, Hugo. That's great.
Good job.
All right. Nice job. Congratulations, Hugo. I actually have something for each one of you, so we'll get to that at the end. All right.
I have an excuse. I'm old.
Yeah.
Well, not Hugo.
Yeah, but he won.
I guess I should have given him a handicap. That means you're okay. That means Hugo and Rob, you tied. Mike,
Stroke penalty, yeah.
favorite story, Mike. What do you got? Favorite video, favorite story?
Boy, there was a couple, but my favorite story was one I did recently, and it was about the 1974 season. It was specifically about 1974, myself and the Dodgers, because I was growing up. That year, I had finished grammar school, grade school, and started high school. So big change in my life. I collected really heavy that summer, played a lot of ball. Just everything about my life was going to be changing. And we got a chance to go to the playoffs for the first time, see the Dodgers and the Pirates. And I had from the very beginning. Well, let me show you. I still had the ticket stubs.
Wow.
From way back then for both games. Dodgers had won 2 games at the Pirates, Three Rivers Stadium, and they came home and lost the first game at Dodger Stadium, which we saw, and then they won the fourth game. But it was just a whole story about how we got to the games, and just just everything about that. Just was I always knew when I first started making videos that someday I was going to make a video about that, because I had a lot of story that I wanted to tell about it. And it just I knew the music I was going to end it with, but the one thing I started off with was like a time machine. And that was actually, and I've done this with other videos, I'll have something in my mind for a video, and then I put it to the side of what I'm going to do, and then it's almost like you kind of take parts from it and use it in other videos. And that beginning was kind of the start from another video I was going to make, and I just kind of junked it and used it. And I thought it came out pretty good for the most part, but I think that's probably my favorite so far.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
It was a good one.
Rob?
Favorite video. Well, there were a couple that I had personal stories with my dad or grandfather and that sort of thing. But this one actually was, from a historical point of view, a story that unfolded as I researched it. And I really enjoyed doing this because the coincidences or the relationships, whatever, were just fantastic. And what I'm talking about is the Eddie Kazak and Andy Semenuk story. And real briefly, Eddie and Andy were actually boyhood friends. They played on sandlot ball. They played on the same high school team. Andy ended up getting injured, hurt his knee as he was getting into college. And at about this time, World War II broke out. And Eddie was able to enlist, and he ended up serving in Europe and sustained a very serious injury a few days following D-Day. And Andy, meanwhile, continued to play professional ball. And at the end of the war, Eddie came back. He actually rehabbed for 18 months in Palm Springs, in California. They had turned a famous hotel into a hospital, military hospital. Eddie rehabbed there and then reported back to the St. Louis Cardinals. And at that time, the Cardinals were quite a team. Obviously, Stan Musial was early in his career, and they just had a very powerful lineup. Well, Eddie worked hard. He played in the minors for a couple of years, and then they finally brought him up in the late 48 season, and then 49 he reported to spring training. And the injury he sustained was to his throwing arm, and very serious elbow injury. And it was essentially reconstructed. And for the medical technology at the time, probably pretty rudimentary. But Eddie ended up having a fantastic start to the 49 season, was selected for the All-Star team. And guess who else was selected for the All-Star team? Andy Semenuk, his boyhood buddy. And they both started in the game. Andy was the catcher. I believe he was playing for the Phillies at that point. Eddie starts at third base and makes a couple of nice plays. I think he had a couple of hits, if I recall. Ironically and very sadly, about 15 days after the All-Star game, he's playing in Ebbets Field against the Dodgers, and he sustained essentially a career-ending ankle injury, sliding into second base, tagged out by Jackie Robinson. And in the All-Star game, he had, I think, driven in Jackie Robinson, so there was a connection there. And so Eddie bounced around a couple of years later. I think his last card was the 1953 Topps, and he's a Tiger, but he never played a game for the Detroit Tigers. And then he went to the minors, had a relatively long career there, 7 or 8 years, but never made it back to the majors. And Andy Semenuk actually played for the Whiz Kids in 1950 and had a pretty productive career through the 1950s. And I think that was my favorite story, just the comeback. I entitled it Unbreakable, and Eddie truly was. And Lou Brissy, Gordon mentioned him earlier in the video, similar situation, had a very serious leg injury. And I think he pitched in that same All-Star game in 1949. And despite having a serious big brace on his ankle and to support his leg. So that would be my favorite video story that I've told.
And the reconstruction surgery on Kazik, if I remember right, he used plastic in his elbow.
That's right.
I can't even imagine that.
Right. Yeah, quite a comeback for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hugo, what do you got?
All right, so my favorite was my fourth video, and it was on Al Lopez. All right, so now the reason I chose that one is, just his whole life story. Being that his family, he's originally from Spain, then his family lived in Cuba, and he came to the U.S. So they were immigrants living here in Tampa in the section called Ybor City. His dad made cigars, so it was just gonna be like, hey, this is gonna be your life. You're gonna make cigars with Cuban, and just to know that he wanted to do something else. He saw baseball and he thought, man, this is great. I want to play baseball, and he went for it, and did really well. I mean, he even dropped out of school to play baseball because he was that sure of himself, And he's a big figure here in this area, in Tampa area. There's a huge park named after him. Of course, there's the Tampa Baseball Museum. It's inside his childhood home. So there's a lot. Like, there was a ballpark where the Reds trained in spring training for years, where now it's Raymond James Stadium where the Buccaneers play. That's what sits on there now. But before, it was a baseball stadium named Al Lopez Field. So to know that an immigrant could come to America, succeed like this to the point where he makes the Hall of Fame. He's a great ball player, but then he made it as a manager, and he was able to lead other ball players. Just his whole life story is just very inspiring. He was the first guy to really inspire kids in this area to show them that they could make it, even if they were immigrants. So me being an immigrant, that is a great story, because I had dreams and aspirations to make it someday to the major leagues, and to see a guy that did it way back then, it's just a great story, very inspiring. He fought real hard for what he got in life, and he was very respected. So just a great baseball figure, again, a lifer. And just being that it's in that area, and I spent so much time in Tampa, it was just a great video to go there with my family. We spent the day seeking out, where where he walked and where he hung out and did things, and it was just a good memory. We rode the trolley together, and which was like my family's favorite part. But that's how I ended the video. But it's just I don't know, everything about it was exactly what I want to do here on YouTube, you know, and it was like the first video that like I got a couple of big shout outs, you know, like Orlando and Dylan like shouted me out and stuff, and I thought, okay, well, this is pretty cool. I'm like I like that people are digging this, you know. You know, it was my first, like, I guess, successful video on YouTube, which showed me that, hey, you know, just stick to what you like doing, you know, be true to who you are, and just trust it and go with it, you know. And it feels like, in a baseball sense, that's kind of Al Lopez, you know. He just trusted his instincts, and he went for it, and, you know, and I'm sure he got a lot of pushback from family or whatever it was, society back then, you know, and he just fought through it. So I think it's a great figure, you know, to talk about and go over. So,
Gordon?
Yeah, before I start, I do want to thank you, Drew. I think every one of you guys I found on YouTube. So the way the YouTube algorithm works is well, nobody knows exactly, but it throws it throws things in your face that it thinks you're interested in. But I found all of you guys through Drew. From Drew, he continually shouts out people. In fact, your most recent video, I think you highlighted a couple other guys that were at 1,000 subscribers that I never heard of. And that's so important because the algorithm is not turning, I don't know what it's doing, but it's not turning me on to guys like you guys. So I keep getting, for some reason, I keep getting like Jab's family, which I have no desire in that. I don't know what's wrong with the algorithm, but so I think the video, and what was the question again? The one we're most proud of, or the?
Well, this maybe the story that you enjoyed the most, or your favorite video. Either way, however you want to take it.
Probably this one, because and everybody probably knows his story. This is Mo Berg. I mean, they made a movie about the guy. Maybe not the greatest take on his life, but it was just such a fascinating story. And again, when it wasn't until the last few years that I even heard of Mo Berg. I'd certainly never heard of him, you know, in my first round of collecting when I was a teenager. And he's just such a fascinating guy. He spoke, I think, 12 different languages, went to Columbia, went to Princeton, law degree from Columbia, and basically was a journeyman catcher, and no real significance to his MLB career. But in case a listener or a viewer wasn't aware, he afterwards made his impact in working for the OSS, which was the predecessor to the CIA. And he was just an incredibly bright guy. And his story is one that I can't really summarize in 60 seconds. It's just phenomenal what he was capable of doing. And at one point he was assigned to basically assess whether or not Werner von Heisenberg had the bomb, and if he did, the technology to create the bomb, then it was his task to assassinate him. And it's just a crazy story. And he was part of the tour of Japan that included Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Lefty O'Doul, and just one of those guys, kind of like just seemed to be like in the mix and in the background and a lot of different things, and super interesting story.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think for me it was one video, but it turned out to be an hour and a half long, and so I had to break it into 4 parts, and that was the opportunity for me to sit down with Eddie Watt, who had appeared in 4 World Series and won 2 of them with the Baltimore Orioles, and he's got such a sharp memory, fantastic stories, and I could just sit there all day long. So listening to him tell those stories and having the opportunity to, share those stories with everybody, I think really was my favorite. So, yeah. So I know we're at an hour, and I had one more question, or 2 more questions. So we're going to do one more, and it was one that Mike brought up, and then we'll conclude. But what story video would you like to re-record or do better? And I thought it was a great question, Mike. So which one for you?
I'd say my second video, and it's kind of reminiscent to me of like what they say when you make music, when you make an album, your first album, it's like you have your whole life to put into it, and then you've got just a few months to do your second album. Well, it's kind of like that for videos to me. It's like I thought my first introduction video, it may, I don't know, when I say it came out pretty good, for what I was thinking it was going to be in my head, I think I got that onto the video. The second one, I should have gone a little safer and did something a little more mainstream. Let's try to build my channel. But I went with Casey at the Bat, the poem, and then things around it. I did the guy that the vaudeville actor that on stage made it famous was DeWolf Hopper rather, and I have his autograph, and I had off the Wheaties box from that era. I have the poem and a card from DeWolf Hopper, and I told the story of the whole situation around that. If I was to do it again, I would have spiced it up a little bit and maybe had some T206 cards of players that might have gone to see, them perform on stage, and so to me it was a little dry, and it was probably, well, it must have been not very exciting because not very many people watched it. So that'd probably be the one I would redo. I mean, I redo several, but that would be the one that first comes to mind.
Yeah. Rob?
Well, I'm going to answer it kind of from a sideways perspective. I probably would like to re-record every one of them. The reason why I say that is the only video I ever did that was edited to any degree was my second one. My debut, I just kind of got on camera and went for it. But the second one was the Sandy Koufax Perfect Game. And my daughter helped me with that. And she has fantastic editing skills. But after that, I never had access to her editing for me. So every video I do literally is a one take. And it's one of those things, I don't write a script. I just turn on the record button, and hopefully the recorder records what I say. But I wish I could have some editing skills to really juice things up a little bit, because I see so many of you guys, and you're all included in that group, where your editing, you can tell you just do a fantastic job, and I just don't have that capability. So if I could re-record all of them, I probably would, just to juice them up, add a little bit more content, maybe a little bit more visual stimulation as far as that goes. But I've enjoyed the ride. Probably won't change my tactics, just because that's the way it is. But I'm just thrilled to be able to deliver content that a lot of people like to listen to. Not a whole bunch, but I know it's a limited community. The guys that really like the history, they like to understand who the guys are on that piece of cardboard. And, it's just not ink on a cardboard. There's a life there that's worth looking into. And that's, I think, what a lot of us, all five of us here today, really focus on. So that would be my response.
Hugo?
At first I thought, well, I would like to remake some of these videos to show, I don't have the cards that are available, I guess, out there. Like, for example, the Al Lopez, I'd love to have the original Diamond Stars card, to do that video again. And I plan on remaking some of my videos and introducing these cards that I add to my collection. But then this one small video popped into my mind, and I thought, man, I feel like I didn't do it justice, because the story goes, I was in Winter Haven for the day and saw a baseball field nearby, and I went by, and it was named after a guy, and it was a guy I never heard of. So on the plaque there, his name is Jim Schoolboy Tuggerson, and he, local guy who played in a minor leagues. He was a teammate with Hank Aaron in the Negro Leagues, and he was a pitcher, really good pitcher too. He had, great stats, and it looked like he could have made the major leagues at one point, if he had stuck with it. And but the story goes, this is years after Jackie Robinson. All right, we're talking early 50s. I want to say it was like 1952. He's in the Cotton States League, and he the owner of the team doesn't want him to play. Oh, not the owner, but like the league doesn't want him to play. The president of the league doesn't want him to play because he's a black man, and he's still in the South in early 50s, and he so they ship him off to. He goes and plays with the Smokies out of Knoxville Smokies, in that league. And anyway, so then they try to get him back, and there's all this chaos going on. It's a long story, but I did like a 2-minute video on it, and I just felt like, man, there was so much more to talk about, because this guy was like he was civil rights figure here, early 50s, fighting, because he sued the league, he sued the president, the team owners, because they all conspired to not allow him to play, based on his skin color. So I just thought, man, this is a figure I never heard of. Most people haven't, and it would be nice to do go more in depth about his life and what he experienced. And I filmed the whole video because it was going to be a short, because I just got to the field. I just got like some footage of the field. It was vertical, and then I did a voiceover, and it was like a 2-minute video, because originally it was going to be a short, and then I turned into a regular video, and I just felt like it fell short, of what my standards are. So I would like to remake that one someday and do a better job. So
I remember that video. I remember it. Yeah, I don't know if we want to edit this out or not. I had a guy who was trolling me at one point, and he kept leaving me comments about how monotone and boring I was. And then I started pinning his comments, and then he stopped. But so I think early on, people don't understand how nervous you can get when you're recording a video, because that potentially there are going to be a lot of people looking at that, and they're going to be looking at your face. And I mean, I'm no model. I don't, it's not something I envy. So if I could do a video over again, it would probably be the one I did on this guy. This is Ray Caldwell. This is his Cracker Jack card from 1915. And he was the guy, if you're familiar with the story at all, that he was pitching for Cleveland in 1919, and it was his debut for Cleveland. And he had pitched 8 2/3 of an inning, and he was struck by lightning. And and like legitimately struck by lightning, like cleats blown off kind of thing. And the Ray Chapman, who was playing shortstop at the time, could feel like the hair on the back of his neck standing up, and the dude got up and finished the game. Like, it's just such a crazy story. But when I told the story and I go back, Rob, I don't know how you do it in one take, but I just came out kind of flat. I think I had recorded it a number of times and wasn't happy with it, and would go back and record it again. And, by the time you do something 3 times, you just don't have the same energy anymore. And it just comes out flat, I think. And the story deserves much more than that. So I would probably do that one over again. But I'm not the kind of guy, if you go on YouTube and you watch videos, they're like, hey guys, that's just not my personality, and I wouldn't be able to keep that up. So by default, I'm going to be a little bit, what's that guy's name? Not Ben Stiller, Ben Stein.
Ben Stein.
Yeah, Ben Stein. Yeah, I'm not quite Ben Stein, but I am who I am. But I do wish I could, I wish I could go back and do that one again. If YouTube allowed you, how YouTube allows you to go to videos you've already done and you can edit, like cut things from it. I wish I could insert new segments, because I would definitely do that. But
no, that's a great point. I actually have thought the same thing, Gordon. I wish I could go in and go cut that clip out. I said that wrong. And then, yeah. But,
what about you, Drew?
My answer is really the same as Rob. I wish I could go back and redo them all. There's a learning curve. It's a process. You kind of get better as you go, whether that be your cadence or whatever it is. But I'm nowhere close to being where I would hope to be one day. And I've told a few stories, and then I get home, I post it, and then I realize, oh, I forgot about this, or I forgot about that, and so
I think we've all done that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think for me, a couple of them, like the Polo Grounds, I really went back and forth on that story at the Polo Grounds, whether I wanted to include the whole scandal with the sign stealing. I took it out, and then I thought, oh man, I should have.
Yeah, I think I texted you about that. You're like, yes,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah, and thank goodness, Rob did a video on that, so that that was great. And I think the other one, oddly enough, is the Eddie Watt one. We talked for an hour before I even started hitting the record. And I'm like, why am I not recording this?
Mhm.
I'm like, what? Because he was just throwing gems out there. I'm like, finally, I had to interrupt him. Say, sit down. I got to put the record button on. So
His recall was amazing. The detail.
Oh, yeah.
You could even remember what pitch he was throwing. It was
he's talking about. Well, I had him 2-1 on Roseboro, and I'm like, what? How do you know that?
Yeah, that's fantastic work, man. We need oral histories of guys
yeah.
that are still alive. That's invaluable.
It sounds like he's willing to just keep going with me. So I'm looking forward to sitting down with him again. But
That'd be great.
Great stuff.
well, guys, we've been a little over an hour and 10 minutes. So I'm going to end the recording. But I want to thank you all for joining me today. I absolutely admire all your guys' ability to tell stories. I just love it. So stick around. I got all these cards that I showed here. Hugo, since you won, you get first choice, and we'll work down the line. So these are my personal collection, and I'm going to send you each one of these for putting up with me today. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Sweet.
Man, that's awesome. Really generous. of you.
Thanks, Drew.
Hey, Drew, I got to tell you, I'm honored. This is my debut on this type of format, and I just really appreciate you taking the chance on me. And I've really enjoyed getting to talk to you guys, get to know you a little bit better. You get the comments all the time, but it's really nice to be able to see each other and talk back and forth. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Drew.
Yeah.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording, but stick around, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.